gonna be fun. So I got some more work to do. I've actually got to put the ignition switch in this steering column so that I can actually turn the steering wheel. I haven't been able to turn it because I picked it up out of the junkyard without a key. So I've got a new ignition switch. I'm going to try to slap that in real quick. Meaning I'm going to watch a YouTube video on how to do it and try to go through it. I bought the one tool they say you need, but I'm going to try to get that done real quick. Now I ain't got time to run into town to buy a steering wheel puller, so let's try to build one. Just a chunk of C channel, couple of 3/8 bolts. Oh, I broke it. No, it broke free. Haha. So I didn't want to mess around with making the center work because I don't have any bolts that are threaded long enough, right? You go down to the hardware store and they're only threaded for what, an inch, inch and a half, something like that. And so I just stuck a bolt in there solidly, and that's what I used to press off against the center of the steering column. Easy peasy. Steering column, steering wheel, you know, the roundy thing. Well, I didn't realize that came out that way. Well, how does this come off now? I don't even know. Let's see. Oh, I know how. Ha! That's what I actually spent some money on a tool for. This thing goes on something like that. That will compress that so that I can use the correct proper tool. Nope, just a dull cheap screwdriver. You know, I've got a set of picks just right over there. Instead, let's get a screwdriver and a sharp pocket knife blade that doesn't lock the way it's supposed to. I haven't decided if the guy who invented snap rings was a genius or an evil mad scientist. I mean, they just work. But honestly, putting them on and taking them off, good golly. Okay, because we win again. Haha. I should be taking pictures of this so I can know how it all goes back together. Is that Torx? I think there's a Torx head right there that might be what I'm talking about. That holding. Oh, I even got the right size. Well, that was remarkably easy. So apparently on the old style, the square body, there's some tab right there. This is steering columns out of a GMC, what is it? That's a Chevy Trailblazer, and it's just got a T, I think a T21, maybe T11, I don't know. It's a T something Torx bit screw. Pull that out, and now, oh yeah, we have a key that kind of does key type things. Let's slap this thing back together. I mean, professionally reinstall. Let's see. And just remember how everything went in. That's all we got to do. I'll have to figure out something to do about this horn button, because this isn't the Chevrolet. I've got the steering wheel. I've got a new, look at that. I've got a key that comes in and out, turns, does key type things. Steering wheel turns and does steering wheel type things. We just have more work to do on the whole apparatus. So this is something I've been wanting to do for years, and that's, well, first of all, I turn on the fuel, but I want to see if I can get this thing to crank and start from a key. That's a good feeling. I've been starting this thing with the equivalent of a screwdriver for the last 15 plus years. Good times. Welcome back to the channel, guys. It's time for another video. I wasn't planning on making this one. I was just going to do some work on this thing, get it ready to go, and move on to the rear suspension. But I ran into a little bit of a snag, a little bit of an obstacle. And that's when I was putting in my power steering pump, right? I've got my Saginaw box down here that it's ready for power steering, my steering column, my steering, shaft. Thank you. I appreciate the help on that, assist on that word there. Sometimes words don't work. But steering catch, we're all ready to go except for the power steering pump and the hoses. And so I went to Rock Auto. I ordered a power steering pump for an 86 GMC or GM 1500 with a 5.7 small block Chevy. And then I went on our favorite Jungle website and I ordered, well, if you look for a power steering pump mounting bracket, this is what they send you, right? So it's just these two flat pieces of 1/4 inch plate with some spacers, a couple of bolts, another bolt with the spacer, that's actually the wrong bolt, and this tensioner arm. Here's the dealio though. The astute amongst you might notice that my alternator's on the incorrect side. Not only is my alternator on the incorrect side, but I can't fit my fingers back here behind the power water pump and the timing cover. I have a short water pump. Short water pump, Well, GM used those up until about 1972 in their trucks. They discontinued them in their cars in '68 for the most part. Makes me wonder about how old this motor really is. And you know, it might be time to, replace this motor. It's either here nor there. We'll get to that point later. The point is, this doesn't fit. I'll show you in just a moment here, right? It just doesn't work the way that it should. I don't blame Amazon. I don't blame the manufacturers. It's all on me. I knew I had a short water pump in this vehicle, and I suspected something like this might happen. I was hopeful that it wouldn't. I also went on the Amazon and I ordered a dual pulley to come off of my crank there so that I could run the water pump off of a dedicated belt rather than sharing a belt with the alternator to replace the single pulley setup that was on there. It'd probably be fine to share a belt, but I just didn't want to. So let's take a look at what we have here. So I have my water pump with a new pulley from Rock Auto. I pressed the pulley onto the water pump. I did that mostly correct and proper, so it should be fine. If I look at my, yoinks. If I look at this bracket right here, it's supposed to go on over this stud and just kind of sandwich on the water pump. And you can mount it on almost any of these stud positions. These water pumps have 4 different stud positions on the front. It would be, so you could mount it on the other side of the motor if you really, really wanted to, but that'd be difficult to get your power steering hoses routed correctly. These are actually more in tune with the tensioner, those holes or this hole in the back to be used with the tensioner. Regardless of which hole you use, your spacing is set. Oh, I dropped the bolt. In this case, by the stack up of length from the face of this plate, your spacer bushing here, maybe a washer or two, and then this 1/4-inch plate, or probably 6mm if we want to get technical about it. And if you take that nut off and bolt that onto the block right down there, in theory, your belt should line up. You put on the belt and you go. So let me put this on there and I'll just show you what we got. All right, hopefully we can see this in here. If we take a good gander at my crankshaft pulley compared to my water pump pulley, we're about 3/4 of an inch off, maybe even more, right? If I take this semi-straight edge and I just place it right along this, well, first of all, I got a lot of flex in there, but you can see that we're missing that crank pulley by a good inch out there, which means we've got to move this power steering pump back, and we don't have a whole lot of room between the block. So if we move it back, we also have to bias it. Come on, get that, there we go. Get this out of the way. It's also going to have to be biased out here because our alternator's on the wrong side. And we need to be able to access that fill reservoir. So, and miss the block. So that's going to put us right about here. That's doable for the most part. We'll have to lengthen the tensioner support arm, tensioner arm, and we're going to have to move this whole thing back. And that means reconfiguring this entire setup. We can't just shorten these spacers and utilize this back plate. If we do that, then these plates will be too close together and we won't be able to get the power steering pump in position. But I've got some thoughts on that, and whether we just use it as a template, well, I think I know how we're going to approach it. All right, first thing we're going to do is lop a 1/2 inch off of each of these spacers, and that should get us to about the right standoff on those belts. Next, I'm going to lop off the ear that goes up against the back of this power steering pump off of this back plate. Do I really need the back plate? Yeah, maybe not, but I'm doing it anyways. Do yourself a favor, always deburr this stuff when you cut it. There's nothing worse than a metal sliver. I'm going to replace the bolts with standard set hex head that are a 1/2 inch shorter, because we should have a 1/2 inch shorter assembly when we're done here. Soon. So yeah, that's our new assembly, right? Cut off the back tab, cut that down by a 1/2 inch. This would probably work in this configuration for a long time. We might change that. We'll see if this is how happy we are with the rigidity of this. Boy, how's that look? If I have to say so myself, I think we got it, guys. I think that's the appropriate spacing right there. You know, if I was running 6,500 RPM, yeah, I'd spend some time really lining that up. But I'm not. If this thing hits 5,000 RPM, it's probably going to end up being a bad day for me. Anyways, let's see what we got right here. We have this much throw. We're going to hit the block right there. We've got enough clearance against that exhaust manifold. Here's the next step. Our tension bar. It's not going to reach this stud position right there. We're short by a good couple of inches. Only one solution to that. We just have to extend it, right? Build a new one or extend it. We'll just weld an extension onto it and set that up. But that's the deal, guys. So the whole point of this video is, yeah, your stuff you buy, it doesn't work. It's not going to always fit up the way that it should, even though Amazon swears that it will. Don't be afraid to just go ahead and modify your stuff. It's yours now, right? You bought it, I owned it. I could send it back and then spend hours looking for some other solution and wait a few more days for shipping. Or I can grab out my death wheel, make a couple of cuts, and boom, we're going to have power steering before we know it. So we'll have power steering in this thing before Amazon can get that stuff shipped, you know, with their next day shipping. So that is where we're at. I'm pretty happy with that. I got to grab a cap for that. I got to see if I have a belt and put everything back together. And oh yeah, we do have to adjust that, lengthen that arm by a couple of inches, but that's not a big deal. We got a welder right there. Probably have some scraps kicking around by my feet. And so yeah, cut a hole, weld a little bit of metal, and we're good to go. All right, I've added a nice thick hefty brace, because that's the material I had sticking around right in the middle of this to take care of all this flex. This thing wanted to flex from this point out to here, so I wanted to take that out. This brace clears the power steering pump. We're going to throw a little bit of paint on here, let it cool down for a minute, throw some paint on, put it back on. I think we're about ready. We're so close. All right, we are in business. We have the appropriate belt, 15390, which happens to be somewhere around, it's right here. It's a 39 5/8 long. Your mileage may vary. I'm not going to say that this is the fourth belt I've tried with the fourth trip to the, 4 trips to the auto parts store. First one was my fault. So I guess over the second and third one. You see, because I measured on the inside diameter of the pulley, because that's what the internet told me to do. And I didn't even think about this, but when I went to O'Reilly's, well, it says so right there. OC, that's the outside diameter of these, or cord length of this belt. Now, I got my head hung in shame here, guys. It's ordered a dual pulley, crank pulley, or a dual belt crank pulley. And it happened to come in like a 1/4 inch larger outside diameter than the original pulley. And that 1/4 inch is significant because, well, I can't get, there it goes. Some days you wake up and you want to get out of bed and you think to yourself, is it worth chewing through the restraints? Fighting my way past the guards. And it is. We're fine, right? So here's the deal. I'm going to do some looking online, try to find another pulley on the crankshaft side of things. That's fine. We'll get there. What we can still do is we can still go ahead and try to flush this tonight. If we can flush this and get the power steering to Powerify tonight, I'll go to sleep feeling pretty good about that. So, okay, we just got to get this belt or this hose bent up enough so that we can get it mounted up, flush it, and see what happens. So, yeah, give me a minute. We'll figure this thing out. All right, we should be able to start this thing up. Maybe even turn the steering wheel a couple of times to get the fluid to flow through the steering box into that Diet Mountain Dew jug, because that's the right, correct, and proper receptacle. All right, keep an eye on it. We'll see if we're blowing fluid out around the hose connections. It's just time. Let's see what happens. All right. That looks pretty disgusting. We'll top this thing off again, flow that through. All right, I think I felt it power steering for just a minute in there. Let's go ahead. We'll top it off again. We'll throw a filter in here, connect it back to the pump, and get this thing recirculating the way it's supposed to be. And spill the fluid again. All right. Now we should be getting close. Huh, it was power and steering. How about that? We made some progress today, guys. It wasn't as clean as I wanted it to be, but that's progress nonetheless. So I'm calling that a win. Lots of work to do on there, lots of some maintenance. Got to get the right size of a filter. I'm going to flush that a couple more times, make sure that it's all cleaned out so that we try to give that pump some life. But overall, yeah, it was a frustrating day, but we made progress and we accomplished our goal. So I'm calling that a win. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll get back on this thing. We're going to keep working on it. We're going to make this thing the way it should be. Catch you on the next video.